Hi everyone, this is take two. We're trying to make this work. We're trying to connect Kristi so that she can talk to us about amazing ways that we can position ourselves for free publicity. So thank you for your patience, for everyone watching, and for all of the replay viewers. We are trying to make this work so that we can definitely get this great information on. Here we go. It shows that it's inviting her, and so she should be able to join us. Tell you one thing about technology. Okay, so it's inviting her on right now. So she'll be joining us. So let's give her a minute. But hello to everyone who is watching live. Hello to everyone who's going to be watching the replay. Thank you so much for your patience. Okay, there we go. Yes. Okay, can you hear me, Kristi?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can. Amazing. We finally have this working. Oh my.
Yeah, I may be a little wobbly. I'm having to hold my phone. I always go live on my iPad, so I have this great like tripod, and I never got anything to connect my phone on it, so we'll have to do this old school.
I'm using a selfie stick, so things are working. So like I was just thanking everyone for their patience and us getting this done. Technology is just one of those things that can't rely on sometimes, but we're going to keep it going, okay? So everyone, I just wanted to welcome Kristi. No, I'm sorry. I want to welcome Kristi Dosh, who is just an amazing publicist, and she's going to talk to us about how we can position ourselves for free publicity. And that's something that as business owners, we all want to do. And for me, and from a sales perspective, it's a great way to build brand awareness for people to know what you do and what you offer so that it's easier to sell to them. And so what I'm going to do is turn it over to Kristi, and she has some great tips for us, as you saw a preview in the post about today's talk, and we're going to let her give us some great information, and I'll just kind of ask some questions as she goes along. All right, Kristi.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here to talk about this. This is definitely a subject that I love to talk about. And in particular, I like discussing how you establish and position yourself as an expert, especially when you don't feel like one. I read a study one time about a year ago, and it really has driven a lot of my business ever since. And it talked about how only 19% of experts in the media are women.
Wow.
And it's not because producers or editors are passing over women. It's because women aren't pitching themselves to begin with. And I told this story actually just last week. I was at a TV station and I was doing a segment on TV, and I told the producer about this study and about what I had read, and she said, oh, absolutely. She said women rarely ever pitch themselves for her shows. And it's because, at least according to this study, it's because women don't ever feel like they're expert enough. They don't think they have enough degrees or enough experience. You know, it's always something. You never feel like enough. And so I talk about this concept of being afraid to use the E word. So I want to talk a little bit about how you get comfortable using the E word and how you present yourself as an expert, because when you start doing that, the publicity opportunities will come, whether they come from you proactively pitching yourself or just putting yourself kind of out into the world. As a matter of fact, when we get done here today, I'm going to write a post about how much I love being a guest expert in groups like I was going to do for you today, Sharik. And, you know, that's a free way to get publicity. And I didn't pitch you, you came to me. So I love teaching people, how do you position yourself as an expert when you're in public spaces like Facebook, so that the invitations come to you and you don't always have to be the one out there pitching yourself.
And I can just say from a sales perspective, I hear that so much too. Like, I'm not expert enough to sell. And it's the same situation, because for me, I've had like 3 podcast interviews, and I've trained in free and paid Facebook groups, and I've never had to ask. They've always come to me.
Right.
So it's definitely great. So this is perfectly on time. All right, so I'll let you go.
All right, so I think the most important thing to cover is how you get comfortable with this idea of being an expert, and how do you position yourself, and what messaging do you use. And my personal opinion on it, and the way that I position all of my clients and myself, is to look at it from the position of that we're all an expert on our own experience.
Right.
Okay. You don't have to be the world's foremost expert. I'm not the world's foremost expert on publicity. You know, my real area of expertise before I became a publicist was the business of sports. I've gotten 2 book deals. I got a full-time job offer from ESPN that took me away from being a practicing attorney. I get paid to speak all over the country on it every single year. I am recognized as an expert in that space, but I'm not the world's foremost expert in that space. And so it's about positioning yourself around your own experience. For me with sports, it was positioning my experience as an attorney, and the fact that I could read things like collective bargaining agreements in sports that my fellow sports writers might not be able to read. And so even though some of them had been, they were journalism majors and they had been in sports media, 20 years, I sort of came in out of nowhere, at the time I was in my mid-20s, and I was this, attorney who had no real sports experience other than playing sports as a kid. But I had a skill set that I played up that other people didn't have, and that came from my background as an attorney. And then as a publicist, what I play up is the fact that I was essentially my own publicist first. So yes, there are other people out there who have degrees in public relations and have worked in huge agencies and have decades of experience. Okay, that's not me. My experience is being my own publicist and being able to get myself roles as a contributor at Forbes and at Fast Company and getting book deals and, changing my career through the publicity opportunities that I had. And so it's about figuring out what in your background makes you different and unique. And that's what you play up. It's not telling people that you know everything in your field and that you are the expert. It's just about being that expert on your own experience, because the more that you share your journey and your story, the more that people identify with little pieces of your journey and they think, okay, she knows exactly how I feel. She knows where I am because she's been there too. So I'm going to hire her because I've seen it. She can, she got there. She can get me there too.
Exactly. And that is so important because we all have experiences from our lives. This is something I always tell my clients. Don't have to know everything. Just know what you are good at and what you can offer to your clients. It's not about knowing everything because no one does. But just a very specific thing, because your experience is different than the other person who does the same exact thing as you. So focus on that thing. Yes.
So here's my big trick for it. And I'm going to give you guys a link where you can get a guide that will walk you through this. It's free. It'll be at guidemybrand.com /expert. So guidemybrand.com /expert. That guide will walk you through it, but I'm going to talk through it kind of quickly now. So most of you probably have an elevator pitch, or you at least know what one is. Incredibly important to have, especially for networking events. I know I saw, tune into the broadcast here for a minute, my friend Megan Ritchie, and I was just in an event with her recently where she was teaching people how to write their elevator pitch. And so most of us have that, but what we don't have that I think you need to have is an expert statement. So I'm going to teach you the difference between those here quickly, and then also the guide will walk you through actually writing your expert statement. So your expert statement is your elevator pitch combined with your unique experience. Okay. So when I give my elevator pitch, there are a lot of other publicists who could say the same thing, and that's fine, because the point of an elevator pitch is to be able to quickly get across to someone what you do and who you serve.
Right.
So my elevator pitch is that I'm a publicist who works with entrepreneurs and nonfiction authors to establish themselves as experts in their niche through media opportunities, both traditional and online. Okay. But there's a lot of publicists who could say that. I know a lot of other publicists who are in the space. I'm friends with them. They essentially do the same thing. My expert statement is what sets me apart. So the example I like to give is, let's say that you were applying to speak at a conference and you knew that they were going to have a session on publicity. So they're going to choose a publicist and 100 people apply. Everybody wants to speak, okay? If you give your elevator pitch when you're writing up your proposal and writing up your application and they say, tell us a little about yourself, and you give your elevator pitch, you could wind up sounding just like the other 100 people who are applying.
Right.
My expert statement is how I sound different when I do something like that. So when I give my expert statement, I combine that elevator pitch with telling people I'm my own best case study. I went from being a corporate attorney to being a nationally recognized expert on the business of sports through guest blogs, podcasts, radio and television interviews, and public speaking. Okay. And it's a little longer than that, but I essentially tell people, look, I'm different because I was my own publicist. I'm my own best case study. I was a corporate attorney and I completely transformed my career through things like guest blogs and radio and TV and public speaking. And I became this nationally recognized expert who got book deals and who got a job offer from ESPN. And, I was able to transform my career through that.
Wow.
Okay, that makes me sound different. I don't know any other publicist in the country who started out as a corporate attorney, became a sports business reporter, and is now a publicist. So do you see how that makes me sound different than my peers? Doesn't necessarily mean I'm better at what I do. I mean, I think I'm good, but it doesn't necessarily mean I'm better at what I do, but it positions me differently by showing what expertise I'm going to draw on when I work with my clients.
Absolutely. That's great, because you would never think about that, because we're only told the expert, the elevator pitch. But to have something that kind of separates you is amazing. I mean, I think even if you're just networking as well, too, that's a great way, to say, I'm a sales coach, but I also do this, and this is my background here, and to kind of show what's different. I love that. Thank you.
And just to give people another quick example, so you don't feel like this only works for me. So one of my clients, actually my oldest client, I'm having my 2-year anniversary for my business next week. And this client has been this client has been with me the entire 2 years. And when I met, she's a doctor. She has a successful medical practice, and also has a product line, a skincare product line. Okay. And when I first met her, she told me about the product line and about how it was plant-based. And I thought, okay, great. I mean, there's a lot of, product lines out there that are natural or organic or plant-based. There was nothing like special or unique or different about her story. And so I dug in deeper with her and I talked to her about like, okay, you own this ear, nose, and throat practice. Why do you have this skincare line? Like, how did this come about? Right. I always try to dig deeper and get people to tell me their why. If you've never seen the Simon Sinek TED Talk on your why, definitely watch that. That will really help you. But I dug into that with her and I found out she had this amazing story that she wasn't telling anyone. And so when we crafted her expert statement, we focus on the fact that in her mid-30s, she's now in her mid-40s, but in her mid-30s, she had thyroid cancer, and it caused her to start looking at the products that she was using on her skin and her hair, and not only impacted what she wanted to use on herself, but what she was recommending for clients. And she realized that what she was using and what she was recommending for clients was chock full of chemicals, which is obviously not great when you have thyroid cancer. And so she searched around for a product line that was plant-based, and there are plenty that are out there. However, what she found is that the term natural is thrown around a lot. It's not FDA regulated, so anyone can say their product is natural. It can mean one ingredient and it is natural. Right. And so then she looked for ones that said they were 100% plant-based, okay? Because then it really is natural. And while they weren't harming you because they didn't have the chemicals, they also weren't necessarily helping you. And being a doctor, she wanted products that cleared up acne and reduced wrinkles and age spots. She wanted to get results from the products. Right. And that's what she couldn't find. That was the gap in the marketplace, was finding a plant-based product that gave what she considered medical grade results. And so she spent years researching it and researching ingredients and working with a chemist, and she developed her own product line that is 100% plant-based, but gives medical grade results. And so we totally changed her messaging, and now she's been in major magazines. She's guest blogged all over the place. She does TV regularly. She's getting ready to do her first national TV. So we've really been able to transform her brand, both her personal brand and her skincare brand, because we injected her story into it. And that's the piece I see so many people missing, is that they're not sharing their own experiences. They're not putting themselves into their messaging. And that's what people connect with, are the little pieces of your story where they can see themselves and where they can connect with something that you stand for or something that you've done. And so I think it's incredibly important to craft that expert statement and figure out what in your background, whether it's personal or professional, makes you good at what you do and gives you a different approach to what you do.
Exactly. I mean, that is an amazing story. And as Megan said, that's a great story. I mean, that's something that really can set you aside because, like you said, on the surface, you'll wonder why ENT doctor is doing a skincare line. But once you hear her personal journey, and that opens up your mind, like, okay, I know exactly why she's doing this. And so, yeah, regardless of what you're selling, you are your own brand and your story is your brand. Not so much, just focusing on what you're selling or what you're creating. And so that's a great example of why it's important that we put ourselves into our businesses. Great. Thank you. So you got some.
So if you go to that link, guidemybrand.com I don't know why I keep saying backslash, backslash expert. I do have a guide where I give you my example and of my elevator pitch and then how that transforms into my expert statement. And it sort of walks you through this whole idea again. But I know sometimes it's helpful to hear these examples. So just think about what in your background makes you an expert at what you do. And again, you don't have to be the world's foremost expert. You don't have to be the top of your field.
Right.
You have to position yourself as an expert on your own experience. At the end of the day, for most people, our ideal client or customer is someone who's where we were a year ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever. It's someone who's several steps behind us. And so quite honestly, most of my clients end up being people with professional backgrounds, attorneys, doctors, sales consultants. I mean, the vast majority of the clients I've had over the last couple of years have had not just undergrad degrees, but they've had graduate degrees. Now, that's not a requirement to work with me, and I have clients who don't fit that, but I tend to attract people who have had professional careers and have advanced degrees, and now they are trying to build up a side hustle or whatever you want to call it. They're becoming entrepreneurs and they're drawn to me because I share my story so much, and they've seen how I've been able to progress and start and grow my business. And so I attract those kind of people, which is fine. I also attract other people. The more you get out there, the more people identify with other aspects of your story. But I think it's incredibly important to put that personal piece in because look, people buy from people.
Yeah.
They work with people who they like on a personal level, who they want to spend time around, who they connect with. I have discovery calls all the time where I just don't feel that connection with the client, and they probably don't feel it with me either, and we're not a good fit for each other. I don't work with a lot of woo-woo clients because I'm not a very woo-woo person. I have a law degree. I approach things from a very different perspective, and that's fine.
Right.
I know people that I can refer them to who are better at the woo-woo side. And so I think too, the more you share your story and position yourself as that expert on your own experience, the more you attract people you really want to work with and people who you can get real results for because you've walked in their shoes.
Exactly. And these are great because I know that so many people think about, where do I get started? And a lot of times we're told, when I first came into this business, it was all about getting on the Huffington Post. Everybody was becoming a contributor with Huffington Post, and that seemed to be the only way. And so this is so important because there's more than one way to get your name out there. And,
absolutely.
right now it's become like everyone is like a contributor with the Huffington Post. You know what I mean? And there's so much more that you can do. Is like you mentioned, speaking and just putting yourself out there for other interviews like this, or even paid interviews or national interviews. And so I think that a lot of times we were just kind of thinking, I would say, too small. And now we see just in this interview with you that there are so many other options out there to get yourself out there to your ideal people for free.
Yes. And I always tell people, think about what you enjoy doing the most. If you don't enjoy writing, then guest blogs probably aren't the right place to start.
Right.
If you prefer speaking or video, look into podcast interviews. If you're not comfortable on video, a lot of my clients start with podcast interviews because that feels a little safer because you're not, on video. If you're someone who enjoys video, then look for these opportunities. I do a lot of Facebook Lives, either in groups that allow members to go live, and I use that opportunity to come on and teach things, or groups that feature, say, a guest expert once a week where you can sign up to be that guest expert. That is a way that I've been able to really grow my tribe, and it's free.
Yes.
You know, all of these methods are free. And I always tell people, you don't need to hire me to do this. Everyone can be their own publicist. You can do all the same things for yourself that I can do for you. You know, the people that work with me don't have the time to do it, or they would just rather pay someone else to do it. You know, I might be able to get you there faster because of my connections, but there's nothing I do for my clients that people can't learn how to do for themselves. And I know I saw Heather, who's my sales funnel strategist, join here. I don't know if she's still on live, but Heather is in my small group publicity program where I teach people how to be their own publicist. And you know, that's been a fantastic opportunity for me to help people do this for themselves, because I do think that it's a very important part of growing your business. You know, my motto is, it doesn't matter how good you are at what you do if no one knows you do it.
Exactly.
Okay, so how do people know what you're doing and how you can help them if you're not putting yourself out there? And that can look like a lot of different things. You know, we work with our clients on guest blogs, podcast interviews, TV appearances. Sometimes it's radio interviews, public speaking. And under public speaking, I would include both speaking live on stage, but doing Facebook Lives, or maybe you have a YouTube channel. You know, there's still some people who really have embraced Periscope. You've got Instagram stories. You know, there's a lot of ways to put yourself out there. And I try a little bit of everything. But Facebook Live has been a fantastic vehicle to reach people for free. And to really connect with them, because they get to see you and to see your personality. And so even if it's just going live on your own page or in your own group and building up from there, I mean, that's what I did. It took a while before I started getting invited into other people's groups. But if there's a group that you're in and you see that they allow, you know, other people to go live or feature them as guest experts, don't hesitate to reach out to that group owner and say, hey, here's who I am and what I do. That's where you use that expert statement.
Absolutely.
You know, I would love to come live in your group and teach your group how to X. You know, the secret to being successful when you're pitching yourself for any of these opportunities, it doesn't matter what kind of publicity it is. The secret to being successful is making it clear in the pitch exactly what the audience is going to walk away knowing how to do.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, the gatekeepers, the group owners, the podcast hosts, the producers of the TV networks, their goal is to provide value for their audience. So don't hide the ball. Make it crystal clear when you pitch to them exactly what you can teach their audience and what their audience will walk away from. And I think you'll start to get a lot of yeses back in response, and you'll be able to put yourself out there in front of those new audiences.
Absolutely. Those are great ideas. I think that, you know, a lot of times that's where I find a lot of hesitancy with people of, oh my gosh, of approaching the admins of these groups, especially if it's a major group. And so what are some tips as far as getting past that fear of, oh my gosh, you know, what if they deny me? What if they reject me? What would you say to someone who kind of had some apprehension about that?
I think it goes back to that idea of getting comfortable with calling yourself an expert, first of all. And that comes down to this reframing your thinking into, you know, being an expert is about being an expert on your own experience and framing it up that way.
Yeah.
And to me, no is never a no. It's a no right now.
Yeah.
I shared a story recently about the first magazine article I ever landed in Women's Day. And actually in my group, I shared the whole email string, and I got a no at first. And she told me why. And I used that to come up with another pitch. And I think I ended up pitching her like 3 different things before she finally bid on something. And even then, she didn't take exactly what I pitched. She said, okay, we could do that if you did it like this,
Right.
you know, and I just kept on until she said yes. And now, you know, I ended up writing for Women's Day like half a dozen times. That ended up leading to me writing for Men's Health because of something they saw that I wrote on Women's Day. And then now the whole reason I told the story last week in my group is that the editor at Women's Day, who initially let me in like 5 years ago, she's now the editor-in-chief at Working Mother magazine. And I pitched her for one of my clients, and my client was published in Working Mother magazine last week. So it kind of came full circle. I mean, what if I had just taken that no? Not only would I have never been in Women's Day, I probably would have never been in Men's Health, and I wouldn't have had the connection to get my client in at Working Mother. So, no is never the end. No is the starting point for a larger conversation.
Absolutely. Same thing in sales. If someone says no, it's great to find out why, because you never know. It's something that can be easily fixable, something that maybe there's a misunderstanding. So it's always good to get clarity around that no, and just know that no is not forever. Okay, it could be
Right.
either not now, or maybe there's something that they just need to get more information on. So thank you for sharing that. Also, just let us know where we can find you. Where can we get more
Yeah.
information on you?
Absolutely. So my website is guidemybrand.com. That's the name of my business. So if you're looking for me on Facebook, facebook.com/guidemybrand. I am on Twitter as well, although quite honestly not as active there as I am on Facebook. And my group on Facebook is called the Visibility Workshop. So you can join us over there for more PR tips and more training videos. I love interacting with everybody. And if there's ever anything that you want to know about and you think, hey, you haven't had a blog on this and I don't see any trainings on it, tell me and I'll do one. I'm always looking for new ideas.
That's great. I'm definitely going to make sure I get in that group too. Okay.
Yes, please do.
Absolutely. I just so enjoyed this. And I remember meeting you. We were on, I think it was in Screwed 9 to 5, and
Yes.
you gave such a great answer to a publicity post. And then you and I connected, and then I saw you actually started to help me. And so I'm just so glad to finally have this opportunity to interview you and talk to you and just get some great information, not only for, myself, but for my audience and for your audience as well. And so I just want to thank you so much for just coming on today. And of course, your patience with all the technical difficulties.
No worries.
Yes, but these are great tips that we can all use. I think regardless of what stage of business you're in, you can definitely use these tips to start getting out there and getting past the fear of no and just working with that no, if you get that. And so thank you so much to everyone who was watching this live. Thank you for joining us, and to all the replay viewers, thank you so much. And I'm Sharik Richardson, sales coach. If you want more time, more clients, and more money, I'm your girl. And if you definitely want that position, you want to position yourself for free, or even if you want to go even further with less time, then Kristi is your girl for that publicity. Thank you, Kristi, so much. And thank you to everyone watching. Have a good day.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right, bye-bye.